Welcome to Midnight Whispers, where the night doesn't whisper, it warns. As you lie in the safety of your bed, imagine footsteps in the forest, eyes watching from behind the trees, and truths too terrifying to ignore. These aren't just stories, they're echoes from the shadows, real accounts whispered under breath by those who survived. So close your eyes, but don't fall asleep too fast. The darkness remembers. Have you ever felt a presence so close, so familiar, yet utterly unseen? What if the comfort you feel is just the beginning of a deeper mystery? I never expected to inherit anything. But when my grandmother passed, my mom asked if I'd mind staying at her small Pennsylvania home for a few weeks to sort through things. The house had that strange stillness only old memories seem to carry, and it always smelled like tea and wood polish. Even after she passed, that smell never left. The first few nights were quiet, a little too quiet. I started sleeping with my door cracked open for some light. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up freezing. My blanket had slipped down to my legs, and I was too groggy to pull it up properly. I lazily tugged it back to my chest, and just as I started to drift off again, I felt it. The blanket moved. Not yanked, not kicked off, but pulled up gently from the bottom corner in a motion so smooth it stopped my breath. It slid all the way up to my chin, and then lightly pressed my shoulders, as if someone had just tucked me in. My eyes shot open. I didn't move a muscle, just stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it, but I hadn't. The blanket had been lifted, smoothed, placed around me with care. I didn't hear or see anything, but I felt it, the same way you feel someone looking at you in a crowd. The way you just know when you're not alone. I whispered, "Grandma," before I could stop myself. All I heard was the house settling, but I slept through the rest of the night. Warm, safe, as if whoever or whatever had done it just wanted me to be comfortable. I stayed another week, and every night, without fail, my blanket seemed to stay exactly where it needed to be. Working the night shift at a rehab center, mostly elderly patients, I had one woman I always checked on last, Miss Evelyn. She was 93, sharp, and always insisted on watching her black and white television until she dozed off. One night, around 11:45, I walked into her room. She was asleep, remote, dangling as usual. But something made me pause. The air felt heavy, charged. Then I saw her thin, floral blanket begin to shift. Slowly, like invisible fingers were sliding up the corner, tucking it in beneath her arm. It moved inch by inch, carefully, the way you'd tuck in a child. Then it gently fell flat, a pressure pushing down across her hips. I didn't move. The whole thing took maybe 10 seconds. She didn't stir. I stepped back into the hallway, stunned. What would I report? That I saw her blanket move on its own? That something invisible tucked her in with almost as much care as the staff? The next morning, she told me she'd slept better than she had in weeks. Said she felt like someone had been sitting with her all night, watching over her. I just nodded. But I've never forgotten the way that blanket moved. It wasn't random. It was intentional. And whoever, or whatever did it, had done it before, possibly caring for patients. These subtle, comforting touches, they hint at something beautiful, right? A lingering connection, a gentle guardian. But what if that familiar warmth begins to shift, and the unspoken presence takes on a different, more unsettling nature? What if the comfort is merely a mask for something you can't quite grasp, something that leaves you questioning not just what it is, but why it's there, and what it truly wants? My husband passed away last winter, a heart attack in his sleep. No warning, no goodbyes. After the funeral, I stopped sleeping in our bedroom. It felt too big, too quiet. I moved to the den, to the pull-out couch where he used to nap. At first, it was just miserable, crying myself to sleep, waking up expecting his voice. Then, one night, I felt a hand wrap around mine. Not sudden, not jarring, just familiar, warm, steady, exactly like his. I was facing the wall with my eyes shut, too exhausted to even move. I squeezed back, half asleep, thinking, he's still here. I didn't open my eyes. I didn't want to break the moment. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been a dream, until it happened again. And again. Every night, just after I'd start drifting off, I'd feel it. That same hand sliding gently into mine, holding me like he used to. I started to find comfort in it. I'd even whisper to it, tell him how much I missed him. And then the dreams started. Dreams of deep, dark water, of my feet sinking into soft, cold mud, of voices whispering that it was time to go. I'd wake up gasping and sweating, only to find that same hand already holding mine. One night, I woke up fully. No grogginess, no confusion. And I realized something. The hand, it was too large. The fingers were too long. The pressure was just slightly too firm, like it was holding on to keep me from pulling away. I finally opened my eyes. There was nothing there to see, but my hand was still in the shape of a grip, curled around something that wasn't visible. It wasn't warm, but it had definitely been there. I stopped sleeping in the den. I started keeping the lights on, but sometimes I wake up and find my hand already extended, waiting. Honestly, I don't know if I'm reaching for him, or if something else is reaching for me. This happened when I was about 10. I haven't told many people about it, not because I'm scared, but because it sounds insane. Even now, at 32, I still question what I saw. My bedroom had a small, creaky door that led into a closet, but the closet had another door inside, connecting to a narrow crawl space, just enough room for old pipes and ductwork. My parents never opened it, and I wasn't allowed to either. One night, I woke up to something tapping. Not loud, more like the soft click of fingernails on wood. I sat up, groggy, and stared right at the closet. And then I saw something. A hand. It came out from behind the half-closed closet door. Pale, bony fingers stretched wide. It gripped the edge of the door frame, slow and deliberate, and then tapped twice on the wood with its index finger. I should have screamed, but I didn't. I just stared at this hand slowly pull itself back into the dark. I must have passed out from fear, eventually, because the next thing I remember, my mom was shaking me awake. Morning sunlight poured through the window. The closet door was wide open, but nothing was inside. They told me I had a nightmare. They told me I was imagining things. But here's the part I don't say out loud. There were 2 long scratch marks on the inside of the door, fresh ones, like something had clawed its way in or out. The line between comfort and dread, between a cherished memory and a lurking unknown, is incredibly thin. These aren't just stories. They're experiences that force us to confront the possibility that what we perceive as gentle or even loving could hold a darker, more ambiguous truth. What would you do if the presence you felt was benevolent one moment and terrifying the next? How do you distinguish between a loved one's lingering embrace and something else entirely? These are questions that echo long after the experience itself fades. As these subtle touches escalated, some witnesses began to experience something far more tangible. Invisible forces interacting directly with their world. Prepare yourself, because in our next segment, the unknown makes its presence known, leaving undeniable physical marks. Imagine standing completely alone, only to feel a distinct tap on your shoulder, or watch an object move on its own. What would you do if the invisible world decided to leave undeniable proof of its presence? Our previous stories delved into subtle, unsettling presences. But sometimes, the unknown demands to be seen, to be felt, leaving tangible marks that defy all explanation. 2 years ago, I was in my kitchen, completely alone, waiting for coffee. No television, no music, no pets, just me and the comforting hum of the coffee maker. And out of nowhere, I felt 3 taps. Hard taps. Right on my left shoulder. Not a brush. Not a vague sensation I could shrug off. These were firm, deliberate taps, the kind someone would give to get your attention. Urgent, even. I spun around so fast I nearly dropped my mug, but there was no one there. I stood there for what felt like minutes, just staring at the empty space behind me, trying to rationalize it. Did something fall? Nothing on the floor. Was it a muscle spasm? No, it felt too human. I don't know what it was, but I know what I felt. And ever since that moment, I've believed that whatever is on the other side, it can reach through. Sometimes, it wants you to know it's there. How would you explain that? In the early 2002, I worked the night shift at an Office Depot. Just 2 or 3 of us, locked in after closing. The weird things started almost immediately. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoing down empty aisles when we knew for a fact no one else was there. One night, around 3 a.m., the store phone kept ringing. My coworker, annoyed, finally picked it up. He listened for a few seconds, then said, "Sorry, you have the wrong number," and hung up. It rang again. Same girl. He hung up. It rang again. This time he put it on speaker. We heard crying, sobbing, and a voice whisper, "Why won't you talk to me? What's wrong with you?" My coworker, unnerved, repeated, "Ma'am, you have the wrong number. Please stop calling." He hung up. It rang one last time. He put it on speaker again. A chilling voice, clear as day, said, "I'm not crazy," then clicked off. It never called again, but it scared the absolute hell out of us. Later, the incidents escalated. My coworker once ran from the tech aisle, swearing he saw a man walking parallel to me on the next aisle over, even though no one was there. Another time, while 3 of us were goofing off in an aisle, a man's voice from the other side of the store yelled, "What the hell?" at the top of its lungs, startling us all. But the final straw came after I returned from my honeymoon. They'd hired a woman to cover my shifts. Her second night, she came up to me, her face pale, saying the back of her neck was on fire. I looked, and she had fresh, deep, red scratches running from her neck all the way down to her mid-back. They weren't bleeding, but they were obvious, and they looked incredibly painful. That was it. I quit a few days later. What unseen force could leave such undeniable proof? Sometimes, the evidence is subtle but persistent. My first cat, Gilly, had a favorite toy mouse. She'd bring it to me, meowing in a specific, muffled way. Years later, when I lived alone and worked nights, Gilly was my only company. One night, I was playing a video game in my bedroom with the door shut. I heard Gilly's distant, silly meowing, then her distinct scratching at my door. I was mid-game, so I ignored her, but when I finally took off my headphones and turned to let her in, Gilly was already there. Lying on the bed behind me, staring at the door, her ears perked forward, curious. The scratching and meowing persisted. I knew Gilly was right next to me. What was on the other side? It sounded almost like an air raid siren mixed with a scream, growing frantic. I slowly crept to the door. The scratching paused. then hit the door again. Harder, more aggressive. The meowing grew frantic. Sounds I'd never heard Gilly make. I ripped open the door. Nothing. The hallway was dark and empty. No other cat, no explanation. Just a terrifying physical manifestation of sound. It leaves you questioning everything, doesn't it? Even small, everyday objects can become conduits for the inexplicable. I was at the grocery store, halfway through my list, mindlessly pushing my cart down the bread aisle. And then, the tortillas jumped. Not fell, not slid, jumped. A sealed pack of corn tortillas, from the middle shelf, shoulder height, shot out from the row and landed on the floor right in front of me, like someone had tossed it from a short distance. Not tumbling, not gliding, just launched. I stood there, blinking. No one else was in the aisle. No cart bump, no breeze, nothing stacked precariously. I picked up the package slowly. It was cold, normal tortillas. I laughed a little, nervously. "Okay, I get it," I said. "Enchiladas tonight." I put them in my cart, but I couldn't shake the feeling. My skin prickled with goosebumps. That weird internal quiet after something wrong happened settled inside me. I finished my list quickly and left. The enchiladas were good, but the memory still gives me chills. And it's not always food. My dad and I were at a quiet sushi restaurant, catching up over rolls and sake. In the middle of a lull in our conversation, his sake cup slid across the table. Quick, smooth, no sound. Just moved about 3 inches to the left, like someone had gently pushed it with a finger. Only nobody had. We were both sitting perfectly still. Neither of us had touched the table. We just stared at it. He raised an eyebrow. I shrugged. We moved on, too stubborn to be the first to acknowledge something weird. Then it happened again. Same thing. Smooth movement, no sound, straight line. This time, we both blurted out, "Did you see that?" "Yeah." I thought I was imagining it before. We tried everything to recreate it. Nudged the table, tapped the cup, checked for water. The table wasn't wobbly, wasn't slanted. The cup wasn't wet. Nothing explained it. And the weirdest part? No matter where we moved the cup, it would always return to that same exact spot. Like the table had a magnetic pull. We finished our meal, both pretending we weren't as unsettled as we were. What unseen force could possess such subtle, yet persistent, will over an inanimate object? The most terrifying encounters, however, are those that directly impact our physical bodies. I was living alone in my new apartment, barely a week after moving in, when a typhoon hit. I woke in the middle of the night to the wind and rain lashing against my windows. Then, the doorbell rang. Who the hell would be at my door in a typhoon? I crept downstairs and peered through the peephole. It was my best friend. Or so I thought. He seemed off, strangely silent. I started to unlock the door. "Hey man, you did really well to get here in this storm." But something dawned on me. He didn't have a driver's license. How did he get here? And why was he not responding? I pressed my eye closer to the peephole. His skin was disturbingly pale, like wax. His eyes flitted back and forth, remote-controlled. That wasn't my friend. I wasn't even sure it was human. It was pretending. I backed away, petrified. I called my real friend, who confirmed he was safely at home. I stayed up all night, listening to that thing repeat the same line, "Who is it?" occasionally twitching its lips into an insane smile. It was only when the sun rose and the storm subsided that I dared to look again. It was gone. And then there was the house where a shadow entity didn't just move objects. It shoved. I'd find things knocked over, cups tipped, shoes turned around. Small annoyances, at first. Then the bathroom door slammed shut behind me so hard it shook the mirror. With no windows open, no draft. It felt targeted. But the worst moment, the one that still haunts me, happened a week later. I was in the kitchen, barefoot, getting a glass of water. Suddenly, I felt a force, cold and fast. It rushed past me and shoved me from behind, hard. I hit the floor so fast I didn't have time to catch myself. My lips split open on the tile. My glass shattered. I screamed, not just from the pain, but because I knew no one else was there. But something had pushed me. I felt the weight, the intention. And right before it happened, for just a second, I swear I felt and heard a breath in my ear. A low, angry exhale. Not wind, not a creaking floorboard. A breath. After that, it only got worse. Lights flickering when I entered a room. The sense of being watched so intense I couldn't sleep without the lights on. I even stayed with a friend, who later admitted she heard invisible footsteps pacing outside my bedroom when she stayed over. I moved out a month later, leaving furniture behind, thinking I'd left whatever it was there. But 2 weeks later, my car radio switched to static, then cut out completely. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. Not panic, actual suffocation, like the air was gone. I felt a wave of horror, like this was death. Then it stopped. I could breathe again. The radio returned to normal. I screamed, telling whatever it was to go away. I don't know what it was. A spirit, a presence, pure hatred. But I know it wasn't there just to scare me. I think it was there to hurt me. What kind of malevolent force is capable of such physical impact? These stories challenge our understanding of what's possible, suggesting that the veil between worlds is thinner than we imagine, and that some entities can, and do, reach through to leave their undeniable mark. While some forces leave marks, others reveal themselves in forms we can barely comprehend. From the shadowy figures of the human-like to creatures utterly alien, our next section plunges into encounters with beings that defy all known biology and logic. Forget ghosts. What if you came face to face with something that shouldn't exist? A creature tall, unnatural, and utterly devoid of human logic? We've all heard tales of spectral figures, but some encounters plunge us into a primal fear far deeper than any ghost story. A realm where reality stretches, and the unknown takes on forms we can barely comprehend. These are the cryptids, the anomalies, the beings that defy all known biology and logic. Imagine driving down a quiet road, miles from anywhere, and seeing a shape emerge from the tree line. This happened to one truck driver in northern Pennsylvania who woke to an unshakable sense of unease. At first, it was just a silhouette, moving. But as it drew closer to his rig, he realized what he was looking at was wrong. Too tall, with limbs that hung too far down, a torso too narrow, and no discernible neck. It looked like a deer, he thought, but it moved like something mimicking a person, bipedal but hunched, with skin like stretched leather. And the eyes? Just two deep wells of black, reflecting no light, just voids. It paused, dead center in the road, tilting its head as if in curiosity, before he threw his rig into gear and got the hell out of there. What was that thing? Could such a creature truly exist, lurking just beyond the edge of our perception? Another witness, driving back from a cabin in rural Pennsylvania, encountered something equally inexplicable. Just after sunset, a form moved through the trees. Not a deer, but something upright, thin, covered in pale, almost glowing white hair, easily 7 feet tall. It didn't move like a person or an animal. Too smooth, too quiet. It stood in a clearing, not reacting, not running, then simply blinked out of existence. 1 second there, the next, gone. No movement, no sound. It makes you wonder, what are these fleeting giants? And where do they go? And then there are the stories that challenge our very understanding of size. In the mountains, one individual swears they've repeatedly seen what can only be described as giants. Humanoid figures, so clearly visible from miles away, they must be enormous. They move with an impossible scale, sometimes appearing to wear bags or backpacks. Vanishing before a second, more focused look can confirm the impossible. What hidden populations might dwell in the remote corners of our world, unseen by most? Even more unsettling are environmental phenomena that defy all logic. In central Okanogan, a morning walk with a dog turned into a nightmare when a slow-drifting, bright pink opaque cloud began consuming a valley. It wasn't a trick of light. Crows and smaller birds flew away in large clusters to avoid it, and the natural world fell silent. A tractor, seemingly abandoned, careened through rows of vines, trying to outrun the cloud, eventually crashing and being completely devoured by the eerie pink haze. Reports surfaced of similar carnivorous pink clouds dating back to the 1952nd, blamed for disappearances and deaths. What kind of atmospheric anomaly can be so sentient, so destructive, and yet remain scientifically unexplained? Sometimes, the unknown manifests not on land, but in our skies or even our deep waters. 2 winters ago, a huge black triangle craft, 40 feet long with plasma-like burners on each point, hovered silently over white pine trees, then slowly glided across a field before vanishing in front of the witness's eyes. Years later, the same witness and their son watched a military jet chase a 6 to 8 foot silver-gray orb buzzing at incredible speed, leaving the jet far behind. And what about the missing time? A nursing student driving home after a midterm saw 2 lights in the sky, then 3 more, hovering silently, before speeding off at an impossible velocity. She arrived home nearly 3 hours late, with no memory of the missing time. What are these silent, swift objects? And what happens in the gaps of our memory when they appear? Along the coast of Georgia, a local legend spoke of storm spirits. One night, a witness pulling in crab traps before a brewing storm saw something tall, pale, and perfectly still standing in the St. Mary's River. It looked human, but it didn't move, didn't react to the wind, then slowly, silently, slipped beneath the water. The storm hit hard the next morning. People say that if you see something strange in or near the water before a storm, you better take it seriously. It makes you wonder what ancient elemental forces lurk beneath the surface, stirred by the approaching chaos. And then there are encounters that go beyond observation, reaching out, touching us in ways that defy explanation. Working construction years ago, one man was left deeply shaken by a voice from a canyon, a low, rhythmic whisper that eventually clarified itself. "We see you." He dropped his flashlight and ran, never looking back. What unseen eyes observe us from the wilderness? And what do they want us to know? Another terrifying incident involved a child's ferry at the Grand Canyon. What was initially a whimsical sighting turned into a searing, agonizing sting from an enormous, impossibly large wasp, leaving a permanent scar and nightmares of heavy wings. Sometimes, the creatures of our world can be as alien and terrifying as any cryptid. Even more insidious are encounters stemming from anomalous objects or malevolent presences that aren't quite ghosts. One man, after buying a blessed amulet from a mysterious old woman, experienced terrifying nightmares and saw a solid, dark shadow figure appear in his bedroom, pressing an uncomfortable hand against his wife's chest during a sleep paralysis episode. The amulet, discarded in the woods, seemed to be the key. Is it the object that's cursed, or does it merely open a door for something else to step through? In an abandoned hotel, a group of friends experienced a profound, icy chill, followed by one of them seeing multiple faces emerging from the shadows in a basement hallway, driving them into a panicked flight. The friend who saw the faces later took his own life in the lake near the hotel. What dark energies cling to places of past horror, and what non-human entities might reside there, just out of sight? Sometimes, they involve unseen entities taking hold, blurring the lines of what it means to be human. A nanny described a horrific experience where a previously well-behaved child, influenced by a dark, solid shadow figure seen lurking in the house, attempted to smother her sister with a pillow. The child seemed to be in a daze, as if waking from a nightmare, leaving the nanny to wonder what malevolent force had taken hold in that home. These stories, from fleeting glimpses of cryptids to battles with unseen entities, remind us of the vastness of what remains undiscovered in our world and beyond. They evoke a primal fear, challenging us to consider what else might be out there. From the bizarre creatures of the wilderness to the monsters within ourselves, the next part of our journey takes a darker turn. Prepare yourself for the true horrors of human nature and the lasting psychological scars they leave behind. Sometimes, the scariest stories aren't about ghosts. They're about the monsters that walk among us, or the darkness that lurks within the human heart. Are you ready to confront the true horror of reality? Our journey so far has brought us face to face with the unknown, but often, the most chilling encounters are not with the spectral, but with the profoundly unsettling depths of human nature. These are the stories of violence, madness, and unspeakable acts that leave indelible scars, blurring the lines between psychological trauma and something far more sinister. We begin with a story that rides the razor's edge of sanity, where exhaustion peels back the veneer of the ordinary. Imagine battling profound sleep deprivation, a grinding schedule of full-time night shifts and daytime university classes. Money was tight, family fractured, and the narrator was slowly, agonizingly, coming undone. The drive home just before dawn became a nightly fight to stay awake. Windows down, face slapped. But then, one morning, something broke. 15 minutes from home, on a deserted stretch of freeway, they saw them. A half-dozen massive, prehistoric-looking crocodiles, jaws open, tails twitching, sprawled across all 4 lanes. They screamed, swerved hard, nearly driving off the road, convinced they'd hit something. But when they slammed on the brakes and looked back, the highway was empty, pristine. Not a ripple, not a shadow. Was it a waking hallucination? A desperate brain's last-ditch effort to jolt them awake? Or did the raw edge of exhaustion crack reality just enough for something impossible to bleed through? What would you hit if you hadn't swerved? What if your mind, pushed to its breaking point, conjured a horror so real it changed the way you saw the world forever? Some monsters don't need to be supernatural to leave you utterly terrified. For one person, true horror was found not in a remote cabin, but in the most unexpected of places, a small-town car repair shop. Driving with their mother through a notoriously creepy town, a place where main roads skirted it and only shadowy figures occasionally peeked from porches they stumbled upon it. A repair shop, eerily out of place given the lack of cars. As they approached, a man emerged. His face was wrong, lumpy, unsettling, wearing the angriest expression they'd ever seen. The first human they'd seen outside in dozens of drives through that town. The sheer, unadulterated rage in his eyes, the unnaturalness of his presence, was enough to make them nope out immediately. No words were exchanged, no violence occurred, yet the encounter left an indelible mark, a primal fear of the human unknown. What makes a place feel wrong? Is it the history, the energy, or simply the people who inhabit it? Sometimes, The most innocent settings can hide the most chilling human threats. One mother learned this terrifyingly firsthand in her ground floor apartment. After weeks of battling sleep deprivation, dismissing glimpses of shadow men as tired hallucinations, she came home one night to what she thought was another shadow figure at her son's bedroom window. A double take, and it was gone. But the next morning, curiosity led her outside, and what she found shattered her composure. Large footprints beneath the window, a jimmy mark on the sill, a window forced ajar, and then her 8-year-old son confessed, his innocent mispronunciations making the horror starker. The plant was talking to me, like Elmo. Its branches would scrape and ask me to come out and play. But eventually, it wasn't the bush. It was a man, tapping, asking to come in, and finally, showing a knife. He knew her schedule, knew her son was alone. A meth pipe and knife found later by police confirmed the terrifying reality. How do you protect a child from a monster that watches from the shadows, knowing your every move, turning a harmless plant into an instrument of terror? The trauma of such a violation leaves an unbearable weight, a constant fear for your child's safety that reshapes your entire life. Another story illuminates the insidious nature of human depravity and its lasting impact on those who witness it. A library employee, working in the older technology section, became the focus of an unsettling regular. This man would appear whenever the narrator was working, posing endless questions about the machines. Then, one morning, the narrator was late, and a large male coworker covered. That's when they found him. The man had spent the entire night hidden in the bathroom near her station, waiting, even taking a bath there. Police were called, and he was led away, screaming her name. The sheer violation, the predatory stalking, forever changed how she worked. She never worked alone in her section again, always scheduled with a male coworker. The memory of that chilling obsession and the terrifying realization of how vulnerable she had been remains a stark reminder of the darkness some individuals carry. The next account pulls us into a nightmare of human violence and its enduring psychological scars. And one 1-year-old girl, home alone, watches the Kids' Choice Awards. Her trailer is stifling hot, the AC broken. She hears her mom's voice, soft and natural, a cadence she hadn't heard in years, saying, "Claire Bear, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you." Her mom asks her to call 999. The operator asks if her mom is hurt, but she sounded fine. A few minutes later, emergency services arrive. The girl is led outside, distracted by a kind paramedic, but she sees the stretcher rolled past. Her mother covered by a sheet. She runs back inside, into her mother's bedroom, and wishes she hadn't. Blood splattered on the walls, furniture torn apart, a large, dark pool soaking the comforter. Her mother had been dead for hours, possibly since the morning, attacked by an unknown assailant who entered and exited through the window. The chilling detail, her mother was singing to her from the other side of the jammed door just moments before paramedics arrived, after she was already dead. The case went cold. The killer never caught. How does a child process such a violent, unexplainable loss, tainted by a phantom last conversation? The profound trauma of this unspeakable act echoes through the narrator's life, a haunting reminder that the truest monsters are often flesh and blood. Sometimes, even when the immediate danger has passed, the true horror lingers, festering in the mind. A firefighter recalls the night the old Hargrave Theater burned, an empty, decaying building, yet the fire behaved unnaturally, like it had a mind of its own. Part of the search and rescue team, the firefighter found himself navigating the labyrinthine corridors with unsettling familiarity, as if he'd been there before. In the smoky basement, He found a charred journal belonging to the theater's original owner, William Hargrave. It spoke of an actress, her leverage, and fire as a punishment. Then he heard it. A woman's faint, muffled scream, full of terror. He should have searched, but orders came to pull out. They lost a man that night. Later, the journal revealed whispers of a fire in 1947, screams in the basement, but no bodies found. The theater was torn down, but the dreams didn't stop. The screams grew louder. Was it a trick of exhaustion? Or did he leave her behind? A human darkness, an implied murder, a secret buried by fire. Now a haunting personal torment. The next tale plunges us into the heart of a shattered family and the terrifying return of a biological father consumed by his demons. When the narrator was 5, her mother fled their meth-cooking, abusive father, Jim, with the help of family. Years later, after a prison sentence, Jim found them. He showed up at school, claiming the mother had an accident, and drove the 7-year-old girl away. The terrifying, erratic drive, the smack across the head for crying, the threat of riding in the trunk, the realization they were heading to a landfill with a shovel. It was an attempted kidnapping, a chilling plan for murder, orchestrated by the very man who was supposed to be a parent. He died in prison years later, but the memory of that raw, unspeakable depravity, the realization of how close she came to a horrific end, leaves an indelible scar. It's a stark reminder that some darkness runs in the blood, a legacy of trauma that's impossible to outrun. The New Year's Eve celebrations of 2019 took a chilling turn for Lacey, Mason, and our narrator. After a night out, a suspicious man near the cafe bathrooms fixated on Lacey, a messy, chaotic presence with an open hoodie and dirty jeans. He followed them, then grabbed Lacey's arm, leaving clear, visible claw marks. When Mason intervened, he barked in his face and shoved him. As their ride pulled away, the man donned a single glove, waving something shiny. An unprovoked assault, a disturbing display of aggression, and the chilling implication of a concealed weapon. The swift, violent interaction and the immediate threat of escalating danger left them shaken, a stark reminder of the random, unpredictable darkness that can lurk in plain sight. What would you do if a casual night out turned into a brush with an unhinged individual, leaving literal scars and a profound sense of vulnerability? Pure, unadulterated evil can be found where you least expect it. A hitchhiker's casual ride turned into a nightmare when the clean-cut driver, Gary, was pulled over. What started as a joke about warrants quickly became a high-speed chase ending in a pit maneuver. The horrifying truth: a dead woman in the trunk. Gary had tortured her for 3 days and was attempting to dispose of the body, only picking up the hitchhiker to appear less suspicious. The casual depravity, the calculated cruelty, and the sheer horror of being unknowingly complicit in such an act indelibly etched the experience into the narrator's mind. It's a stark, brutal awakening to the true depths of human monstrousness, a moment when the world reveals its darkest secrets. The night of New Year's Eve, 2009, became a terrifying ordeal for a 3-year-old and her family in Tacoma. Stuck in a cul-de-sac amidst teenagers lighting fireworks, their slow-moving car became a target. One guy approached, cupped his hands to the tinted window, trying to see inside. Then, a round of 6 back-to-back booms, louder than anything they'd heard before, shattered the car windows. The narrator, hunched over her little sister, escaped physical harm, but her father was not so lucky. A bullet wound to his shoulder blade, narrowly missing his lung. A random act of violence, born from antagonism and chaos, that left visible and invisible scars. The sheer terror of being trapped, the sudden, inexplicable gunfire, and the realization that their lives could have been irrevocably altered or ended by the senseless acts of strangers. How does one reconcile such arbitrary violence with the simple act of driving home from church? This traumatic event fundamentally shifted their sense of safety and the fabric of their family life. A chilling story from an 8th grade babysitter reveals the hidden horrors behind closed doors. She babysat Adam, a sweet boy whose single mother eventually got a new boyfriend. The narrator noticed increased yelling from the shared wall, always when Adam wasn't home, but dismissed it as normal. Her parents, however, were more perceptive, her father often sitting at the kitchen table, listening, ready to act. Eventually, her parents forbade her from babysitting. Adam and his mother disappeared for a while. Then the boyfriend vanished, and Adam returned. But on what was supposed to be the narrator's last babysitting gig before Adam moved away, everything changed. Called to the school office with other neighborhood kids, they were told of an incident. Later, her father revealed the truth. Allison, Adam's mother, had been brutally murdered by her ex-boyfriend, who then took his own life. The man had attacked her in the shower, chased her through the parking lot, and finished the deed in her apartment. One of the gunshots had pierced their dining room wall, exactly where her father had sat listening. The violence, the hidden abuse, the murder, and its psychological ripple effect on an entire family and neighborhood drove them to move within 2 weeks. Her father couldn't stop hearing their voices, arguing, even after they were gone. Was it grief, shock, or a true lingering presence of human agony? The lasting impact of such depravity, the destruction of a life and the trauma it inflicts on those left behind, is a horror that transcends the supernatural. Sometimes, the most disturbing images become replayed nightmares, forever altering the landscape of one's mind. Leisha, a construction lead in Lower Manhattan, arrived at his job site one clear summer morning. As he looked up to take in the sunrise, he witnessed a man step off a 55-story building, plummeting over 750 feet to land on the hotel's glass marquee. The sound was like a bomb, the impact splitting the body in half, sending bloody pieces flying into the construction site. Emergency services shut down the block, but for Leisha, the horror was just beginning. He began experiencing night terrors, thrashing, punching, screaming in his sleep. When he finally broke down, he confessed his nightmares. The man plummeting, his body splitting, then reanimating and crawling towards him, dragging its severed parts. The casual, almost clinical, recounting of the initial event, followed by the raw, visceral trauma of the subsequent nightmares, highlights the profound psychological toll of witnessing such an unspeakable human act. How can you escape an image that's etched itself into your very soul? A nightmare born not of ghosts, but of pure, brutal reality. The darkness within us can be a force as terrifying as any ghost. This next story reveals the ultimate human depravity, a confession from a dying mother that shatters her daughter's world. Her parents were addicts. Her father was in and out of prison. Her mother eventually remarried, got sober, but relapsed. On her deathbed, just hours before slipping into a coma, her mother confessed, "I killed that girl in 2096. The daughter immediately knew who she meant, Vicky, another addict, her father's lover. Her mother, fueled by jealousy, had lured Vicky, then gave her a fatal overdose, watching her convulse and die. The casual cruelty, the deliberate act of murder disguised as an accident, and the subsequent gaslighting of her father, who was blamed, is a horrifying testament to human evil. The daughter, left with the crushing burden of this secret, must now grapple with the knowledge that her own mother was a murderer, and that the truth, when it came, only solidified the depths of human depravity. What do you do when the person who gave you life takes another? How do you live with that knowledge? Our final story of human darkness brings us face to face with the truly unspeakable. A construction worker in Wasco, California, working near the Amtrak rail station, hears of a train fatality. Moments later, his coworker waves him over, pointing at a man 30 yards away, hunched over. What initially appeared to be dirt or mud on him was, in fact, blood. The horrifying realization hit them simultaneously. He was holding and eating a human leg, waving it triumphantly like a trophy. It was stolen from the accident site. The image of the man gnawing on a human limb, the casualness of his depravity, and the utter shock of witnessing such an act left the entire crew physically ill and mentally reeling. This grotesque display of madness and disregard for human life is a chilling reminder that some horrors don't hide in shadows. They walk in broad daylight, leaving witnesses forever changed. After navigating the darkest corners of human experience, we return to the ambiguous line between reality and the supernatural. Our final segment explores moments of perceived divine intervention and events that fundamentally shift our understanding of the world, leaving us forever changed and forever asking, why? What if a single, inexplicable event changed the course of your life forever, or revealed a truth so profound it shattered everything you thought you knew? In our final chapter, prepare for moments where reality itself seems to bend, leaving only lingering questions and transformed lives. We've journeyed through the subtle caress of the unknown, the chilling evidence left behind by unseen forces, and even the primal terror of creatures beyond our comprehension. We've confronted the deepest human darkness and its lasting scars. Now, we arrive at the crossroads of fate, where ordinary lives intersect with the extraordinary, leading to profound revelations that reshape everything. These are stories of moments when the universe seemed to lean in, whispering a secret, or perhaps offering a second chance. They are about the before and after, the indelible mark left when something truly inexplicable changes your path, forever altering your understanding of reality. Our first journey into such a pivotal moment begins with a confession, a haunting glimpse into a life teetering on the brink of self-destruction, only to be pulled back by what can only be described as divine intervention. This is the story of a teenager, consumed by anger and despair, who had meticulously planned to commit an unspeakable act at school. He had acquired a firearm, mapped out his horrific intentions, and marked the fateful Tuesday on his calendar. The night before, nightmares plagued him, vivid, terrifying visions of his deceased uncle, whose face was gruesomely mutilated, just as it had been when he took his own life years prior. The apparition was a silent, aching presence, a tangible manifestation of grief and pain. The teen woke feeling the raw hurt of his uncle all over again. Was it just a dream? A vivid hallucination born of stress? He desperately wanted to believe so, but the feeling lingered. The next morning, his carefully set alarm clock, which he meticulously double-checked every night, was inexplicably unplugged. He overslept, missing the carefully planned start of his day. He revised his terrible intentions to coincide with lunch, grabbing his backpack, the one containing the weapon, and hurrying out. His mother, who usually would have questioned his lateness, simply wished him a good morning, seemingly oblivious. On the bus, deep in his internal turmoil, a silent battle raged, an angel and a devil on his shoulders. He wished someone would stop him. At a bus stop, two young girls, 7 or 8 years old, identical twins in private school uniforms, boarded. One was being pulled by an obese iguana. They sat down, unnervingly, one right next to him, the other facing him. They asked why he wasn't in school, speaking in uncanny unison. Then, the iguana, a creature of bizarre and almost cartoonish proportions, crawled between his legs and began tugging at his backpack. As he tried to retrieve it, the contents spilled out onto the floor. The gun, the extra magazine. The girls simultaneously gasped, Ooh! The twin next to him picked up the firearm and the magazine. He demanded they give it back, but she held on, captivated by the shiny object. The other twin reinserted the magazine, placed the gun back into his bag, and then, as the bus slowed for their stop, she threw his bag over her shoulder and began to leave. He grabbed her arm, pleading, "Wait!" Instantly, the other twin erupted into a theatrical, tearful scream. "You leave my sister alone! You pervert!" Passengers turned, confused, and someone yelled, "Let go of her!" The twins and their reptilian companion vanished. Shaken, humiliated, and without his deadly cargo, he sat in silence for the remaining stops. What would he do? With nothing else planned, he went to school. Upon arrival, having missed 3 periods, he was immediately intercepted by a guidance counselor, Miss Carol Owens. He broke down, pouring out his story. She listened, empathetic and non-judgmental. She connected him with family advocates, therapy, and state-funded support. He never went through with his plan. Years later, he reflects, whether it be a series of divine interventions or luck, I was able to get the help I needed when I was at my rock-bottom lowest. This story is a powerful testament to how small, inexplicable events, or perhaps a higher force, can step in to change a destiny, leaving us forever questioning the threads of fate. But what if the intervention isn't so clear, and the mystery lingers, blurring the lines of what you thought was real? Our next story plunges us into such an enigma, where reality bends and the deceased seem to reach out from beyond. A mother recounts her son's bizarre experience after attempting to visit his father in prison. Upon arrival, they were told the compound was on lockdown. Disappointed, they turned back. An hour into their drive home, the son pulls out an envelope, claiming a guard had given it to him. The mother was perplexed. Her son had been by her side the entire time, and she hadn't seen anyone interact with him. What was even stranger was his description of the guard. Broken sunglasses, one eye entirely black, and a scary demeanor. The son even said the guard knew his name, calling out to him. But the most unsettling part? The envelope contained a letter from his father, dated that very day, in his familiar handwriting. Stunned, the mother pulled over to read it. Days later, her husband called from prison, explaining that the lockdown was due to a massive fight. 2 prisoners went missing, and during the search, a CO named Lewis, a good man liked by all inmates, was found by Marco's cell. Marco had asked Lewis to deliver the letter if he saw his family. But then, the chilling revelation. The missing inmates had ambushed and killed Lewis. He had died before their visit. Marco had received his letter back the next day. The mother, holding the phone, frantically searched her house and car for the letter. It was gone, vanished. She and her son both remembered having it, reading it, internalizing its words. How could a dead man deliver a letter? How could it then disappear? What now? She asks herself, contemplating obsessing over the teleporting letter and Lewis the ghost. But for her son's sake, she tries to let it go. Yet, the perception of her reality had been forever glitterified. This is a profound, lingering mystery that defies explanation, leaving an unsettling question about the thin veil between life and death. Sometimes, the world as you know it can be shattered by a moment of pure, unadulterated horror, leaving psychological scars that reshape every perception. Our next account comes from a construction worker named Leisha, whose life was irrevocably altered on a typical August morning in Lower Manhattan. As he unlocked the final gate on his job site, located across from a towering 55-story luxury hotel, he looked up to admire the sunrise. Instead, he saw a man stepping off the building, plummeting over 750 feet. The impact, he recounts, sounded like a bomb. splitting the body in half, sending bloody pieces flying across the street into his construction zone. The block was instantly shut down. Dazed and in shock, Leisha returned home, small spots of blood freckling his yellow vest. That night, the trauma manifested in night terrors. Leisha, usually calm, thrashed, punched the air, and screamed in his sleep, consumed by a nightmare that replayed the horrific fall. He couldn't or wouldn't talk about it. 3 days later, work called, clearing him to return to the site. The phone dropped from his hand as he collapsed to the floor, finally breaking down. Through tears, he described the nightmares. Every night, he's either driving to work or at the gate, witnessing the man's fall, the body splitting, and then, the most agonizing part, the reanimated halves crawling towards him. There's just something so wildly insane about having your life changed forever in such a brutal way by someone that you've never even met, he shared. This isn't a ghost story in the traditional sense, but it is a powerful testament to how a single, devastating moment can fundamentally alter a person's reality, leaving them haunted not by spirits, but by the indelible imprint of human tragedy. Finally, we delve into an ancient, profound revelation about the forces that exist beyond our mortal sight. As told through the journal of a Catholic priest, this is the story of Father Charlie, a man who, in his younger days, was entrusted with the solemn duty of performing an exorcism. It was only his second, a case of a young woman plagued by a demonic possession. He arrived with his mentor, Bishop McHale, at the family's home, sensing a palpable darkness. The woman's eyes were vacant, her body contorted. As they began the ancient ritual, the room filled with prayers, incense, and flickering candlelight, casting eerie shadows. But the true shadows, he wrote, were the evil inside. The demon fought, its voice shifting from a guttural growl to mocking cries, then to the woman's own voice, pleading for help, unable to see or hear. Then it would return, spewing wicked accusations and horrific imagery, shifting from English to Latin to something utterly unintelligible. This was unlike anything Father Charlie had ever witnessed, a malevolent entity that tested his very faith. He remained steadfast, clinging to his belief, his voice unwavering even as the demon's voice echoed with chilling hatred, shaking him to his core. The battle was grueling, hours passing as the woman's vessel endured unspeakable tortures. Yet they pressed on until, with a final prayer, a surge of energy expelled the demon, leaving the woman limp, exhausted, but alive and breathing. A beautiful silence settled upon the room. The experience changed Father Charlie forever, deepening his understanding of forces beyond our mortal realm. It ignited a thirst within him to delve deeper into spiritual warfare, to study ancient texts. He became renowned for his expertise in exorcisms and training future priests. However, with each successful exorcism, a part of his soul grew heavy. The horrors he faced took their toll, and he eventually chose to step away from the front lines, dedicating himself to research and contemplation. The haunting memories of that second exorcism, and so many others, remained etched in his soul, forever shaping his path. He learned that some battles leave invisible scars, and some truths, once seen, can never be unseen. These stories, from averted tragedies and baffling disappearances to profound psychological impacts and battles with ancient evil, all share a common thread. They represent moments when reality, as we know it, stretched, distorted, or completely broke. They left the narrators forever changed, grappling with questions that science, logic, or even faith cannot fully answer. What do these pivotal moments mean? Are they random anomalies, the brain's way of coping with trauma, or glimpses into a deeper, unseen reality that occasionally intervenes in our lives? Ultimately, these tales leave us to ponder. If reality can bend, if fate can shift, and if the unseen truly exists, how much of what we perceive as normal is merely a fragile illusion? And what profound, world-altering truths might be waiting just beyond the thin veil of our understanding? What do you believe? Let us know your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.